August 20th, 1989, a Sunday evening in Beverly Hills. In a mansion on North Elm Drive, two shotgun blasts shattered the quiet. Then more and more. By the time the smoke cleared, 45-year-old Jose Menendez lay dead on the family room couch, shot 6 times. His wife, 47-year-old Kitty, had been shot 10 times as she tried to crawl away. The scene was so brutal that police initially believed it was a mob hit. But this was no professional killing. This was something far more complex. The triggers were pulled by the couple's own sons, 21-year-old Lyle and 18-year-old Erik Menendez. The shotguns they used, purchased just 2 days earlier at a sporting goods store in San Diego. The motive, prosecutors would claim, a $14 million inheritance. The defense the brothers would present, years of unspeakable abuse behind the closed doors of their perfect Beverly Hills life. What happened that night in August 1989 would captivate the nation. The first trial, broadcast live on court TV, ended in deadlock. The second trial resulted in 2 life sentences, but the story didn't end there. In the months after the murders, the brothers went on a spending spree that would ultimately expose them. $700,000 in 6 months, 3 Rolex watches, a Porsche, a restaurant, tennis coaches, and tickets to basketball games where they'd end up immortalized in the background of a trading card, frozen in time as they spent their parents' money courtside at Madison Square Garden. Now, more than 3 decades later, new evidence has emerged. A letter written by Erik months before the murders. A sworn statement from a former boy band member claiming Jose Menendez assaulted him too. In 2024, a district attorney recommended resentencing. In May 2025, a judge agreed, making the brothers eligible for parole. But in August 2025, both were denied release. 3 years until they can try again. This is the story of what really happened that night, the confession that led to their arrest, and the $14 million estate that would be consumed by their greed, their defense, and a legal battle that still hasn't reached its conclusion. Jose Enrique Menendez was born in Havana, Cuba, in 1944. At 15, in the wake of the Cuban Revolution, he fled to the United States with nothing. He lived in an attic, worked relentlessly, and earned a swimming scholarship to Southern Illinois University. There, he met Mary Louise Anderson, a beauty pageant queen everyone called Kitty. She was older, beautiful, and came from a comfortable American family. They married in 1963. Jose's drive was legendary. He earned an accounting degree from Queens College and climbed the corporate ladder with singular focus. By the 1980s, he was a powerful entertainment executive, first at RCA Records, then at Live Entertainment. He signed major acts. He made deals. He accumulated wealth, the American dream embodied. Kitty gave up her teaching career when their first son, Joseph Lyle, was born in January 1968. Their second son, Eric Galen, arrived in November 1970. The family moved from New York to New Jersey, then to California, always following Jose's ascending career. They lived in Princeton. They lived in Calabasas. And finally, they settled into a Beverly Hills mansion on North Elm Drive, purchased for $4 million. From the outside, the Menendez family had everything: the mansion, the cars, the country club memberships. Both boys attended Princeton Day School, one of the most elite prep schools in New Jersey. Lyle went on to Princeton University. Erik was a ranked tennis player with dreams of going pro. Jose pushed his sons relentlessly. Perfect grades, perfect performance, perfect image. Nothing less was acceptable. But according to what would later emerge in court testimony, something dark lived behind that perfect facade. Both brothers would testify that Jose had sexually abused them from childhood, that Kitty, struggling with depression and alcoholism, knew and did nothing, that the abuse continued into their teenage years, escalating in the months before the murders. These claims would divide public opinion. Were the brothers victims who snapped? Or were they calculating killers who invented a defense? What's not in dispute is what happened on the evening of August 20th, 1989. 2 days before the murders, on August 18th, Lyle and Erik drove to San Diego. They visited a Big Five sporting goods store on Convoy Street. They wanted to buy handguns, but there was a problem. Lyle's driver's license had issues, and California law required a 2-week waiting period for handguns. So they changed plans. They purchased 2 Mossberg 12-gauge shotguns instead. The paperwork was signed using a stolen ID belonging to Lyle's friend, Donovan Goodrow. They bought boxes of birdshot and buckshot ammunition. Total cost, $399.90. On August 19th, the day before the murders, Jose and Kitty chartered a yacht. They took their sons shark fishing, a family outing off the California coast. By all accounts, it was an ordinary day. No one observing them would have suspected what was coming. Sunday, August 20th, evening. Jose and Kitty settled into the family room den. They were watching The Spy Who Loved Me, the 1977 James Bond film. Fresh bowls of berries and cream sat on the coffee table. They were dressed casually, comfortable in their own home. According to later testimony, they had no idea their sons were in the house, loading the shotguns they'd purchased 2 days earlier. Lyle and Erik entered the den carrying the loaded weapons. What happened next was methodical and brutal. Jose was shot 6 times, including a fatal blast to the back of his head at point-blank range. Kitty was shot 10 times. When she didn't die immediately, she tried to crawl away. She was on the floor when Lyle ran to the car, got more ammunition from Erik, came back, and fired the final shot into her face. The brothers then collected the spent shotgun shell casings. They left nothing that would contain their fingerprints. They drove up Mulholland Drive and buried the shotguns somewhere along that winding road that runs from the Pacific Ocean to the San Fernando Valley. They had planned an alibi. They'd go to a movie theater and buy tickets for Batman. But when they arrived and realized the theater time stamped its ticket stubs, they abandoned that plan. Instead, they went to the Taste of LA festival at the Santa Monica Civic Auditorium. When they returned home around 11:47 that night and found no police presence, Lyle called 911. He was screaming, hysterical. "Someone killed my parents!" Erik's cries could be heard in the background. When officers arrived, both brothers ran from the house toward them, screaming and sobbing. The responding officers were so convinced by their grief that they didn't test their hands for gunshot residue, a test that would have immediately revealed the truth. The crime scene was devastating. Police found Jose slumped on the couch, Kitty on the floor nearby. Both had been shot at close range with such force that early investigators believed it was a mob execution, perhaps tied to Jose's business dealings, perhaps retaliation from the entertainment industry. The brutality suggested professional killers, not sons. For months, police pursued those theories. They had no reason to suspect Lyle and Erik. The brothers maintained their story. They'd been out. They'd come home. They'd found this horror. Who would suspect grieving sons? 4 days after the murders, Lyle and Erik walked into a Beverly Hills jewelry store. They spent $15,000 on 3 Rolex watches and several money clips. They wore the watches to their parents' funeral the next day. Sitting in the limousine after the services, Lyle showed off his new leather loafers to his father's secretary. "Hey, Marzi," he said, "who said I couldn't fill my father's shoes?" Then he asked another friend in the car how he could get tickets to the US Open tennis tournament. This was just the beginning. The brothers had received Jose's life insurance payout of $650,000. Over the next 6 months, they would spend nearly $700,000. In today's terms, that's over $1 million. Lyle traded his red Alfa Romeo for a gunmetal gray Porsche 911 Carrera. Price tag, $64,000. Erik replaced his Ford Escort with a Jeep Wrangler. They both moved into expensive condos in Marina del Rey, each costing thousands per month. Lyle hired bodyguards, claiming he feared the mob would come after him next. But his bodyguard, Richard Wenskoski, later testified that Lyle didn't seem particularly concerned about his safety. He'd jump out of the limousine before it fully stopped and run into clothing stores, leaving his protection behind. He spent $3,000 at a time on shopping sprees. The spending extended beyond personal luxuries. Lyle decided to become a businessman. He rented office space in a Princeton shopping mall for $3,000 a month and furnished it expensively for his venture, Menendez Investment Enterprises. He gathered his Princeton friends and made them officers of his new company, though none of them had business experience. The office sat unused, a testament to appearance over substance. Lyle tried to buy a restaurant called Chuck's Spring Street Cafe, spending tens of thousands. By October, he'd charged more than $90,000 to Jose's American Express card. Erik focused his spending on his tennis career. He hired expensive coaches, including one who trained with him 10 hours a day at $60,000 annually. He traveled internationally for tournaments. He invested $40,000 in a rock concert at the Palladium in Los Angeles that never happened. He gambled, losing thousands. Both brothers attended Knicks games at Madison Square Garden, sitting courtside. In one of those games, they'd end up visible in the background of a Mark Jackson NBA trading card, forever captured spending their inheritance while their parents' murders remained unsolved. The spending raised eyebrows. Friends noticed. Business associates noticed. But there was no physical evidence linking the brothers to the crime. The shotguns were buried. The shell casings had been collected. The police still believed they were looking for external killers. Lyle and Erik appeared to be simply 2 young men, perhaps dealing with grief in unhealthy ways, perhaps just spoiled and materialistic. Nothing more. Then, in early 1990, everything changed. Not because of the spending, not because of evidence, because Erik Menendez couldn't keep the secret anymore. Erik began seeing a psychologist named Dr. Jerome Oziel in October 1989. In their sessions, Erik was troubled, anxious, unable to cope. On October 31st, Halloween night, 1989, Erik broke down. He confessed to the murders. He told Dr. Oziel that he and Lyle had killed their parents, that it was fear, that they believed Jose would kill them to keep the abuse secret, that they'd bought the guns, that they'd done it together. Dr. Oziel, in a decision that would become central to the case, recorded these sessions. He was dating a woman named Judalon Smythe. Later testimony would reveal that Oziel wanted to impress his girlfriend, wanted to seem important, wanted to document his role in a sensational case. When Lyle found out that Erik had confessed, he threatened Oziel, telling the psychologist that if he revealed what Erik had said, Lyle would kill him too. Oziel recorded that as well. The secret held for months, but relationships don't always last. In March 1990, Dr. Oziel and Judalon Smythe had broken up. Angry and spurned, Smythe went to the Beverly Hills Police Department. She told them about the confession. She told them about the recordings. She told them everything. On March 8, 1990, nearly 7 months after the murders, police arrested Lyle Menendez outside the Beverly Hills mansion where he'd killed his parents. Erik was in Israel at the time, having traveled there for a tennis tournament. When he learned of his brother's arrest, he returned to Los Angeles and surrendered himself 3 days later on March 11th. Both brothers were charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances, making them eligible for the death penalty. The legal battle over Dr. Oziel's tapes would drag on for years. The defense argued patient-therapist privilege. The prosecution argued that privilege was voided when Lyle threatened Oziel's life. Eventually, the California Supreme Court ruled that portions of the tapes were admissible as evidence. The brothers' own words, their own confession, would be used against them. But the confession tapes contained something unexpected. Erik hadn't just admitted to murder. He'd described years of sexual abuse, fear of his father, a final confrontation on the night of the murders. This would become the foundation of their defense strategy. Not that they didn't kill their parents, but that they'd acted in self-defense, believing Jose was about to kill them to prevent the abuse from being exposed. The question that would dominate the trials was simple. Were they telling the truth? The first trial began in July 1993. It was one of the first cases to be broadcast live on court TV, and the nation watched, transfixed. Each brother had his own jury. The courtroom was packed daily. The testimony was graphic, emotional, and deeply disturbing. Lyle and Erik took the stand. For over a month, they described years of sexual abuse by their father, starting when they were children. Erik testified that Jose had molested him from age 6, that it continued through his teenage years, that in the weeks before the murders, he'd told Lyle the abuse was still happening. Lyle testified he'd been abused until he was 8. Then his father had turned his attention to Erik. The brothers described their mother as emotionally distant, struggling with alcoholism and depression, aware of the abuse, but unwilling or unable to stop it. The defense presented the killings as an act of desperate self-preservation. The brothers claimed that in the days before August 20th, there had been confrontations. Erik had threatened to tell everyone. Jose had told them that if they exposed the abuse, he would kill them. They believed him. They bought the shotguns for protection. On that Sunday night, when the final confrontation began, they believed they had to kill their parents before their parents killed them. The prosecution told a very different story. They argued the motive was pure greed. Jose's estate was worth $14 million. The brothers stood to inherit approximately $2 million each after taxes and debts. The prosecutors pointed to the spending spree. The Rolex watches purchased 4 days after the murders, the Porsche, the restaurant, the trips, the bodyguards. They argued the brothers had killed their parents for money, then invented the abuse story when they got caught. Prosecutor Pamela Bozanich was particularly forceful. She argued that even if abuse had occurred, it didn't justify murder, that the brothers could have left, that they could have told someone, that they weren't in imminent danger, that this was premeditated murder, planned days in advance with the purchase of shotguns, that collecting shell casings and disposing of weapons wasn't self-defense. it was calculated killing. The trial included testimony from family members. Some supported the brothers, saying they'd witnessed signs of abuse or unusual behavior from Jose. Others testified for the prosecution, describing the brothers as spoiled, manipulative, and capable of lying to get what they wanted. After months of deliberation, both juries deadlocked. They could not reach unanimous verdicts. A mistrial was declared. The nation was divided. Some believed the brothers were victims who'd been pushed to a breaking point. Others believed they were cold-blooded killers who'd gotten away with murder because they were wealthy and could afford good lawyers. The second trial began in October 1995. This time, there would be only one jury for both brothers. And this time, the judge made a crucial ruling. Much of the defense evidence about sexual abuse would be excluded. The judge determined it was hearsay, that it wasn't properly substantiated, that it would unduly prejudice the jury. The defense couldn't present their case the way they had in the first trial. In March 1996, both Lyle and Erik Menendez were found guilty of first-degree murder. The jury recommended life in prison without the possibility of parole. On April 17, 1996, they were sentenced. The brothers, now convicted killers, were separated and sent to different prisons. They wouldn't see each other in person for more than 20 years. For years after their convictions, Lyle and Erik pursued appeals. Everyone was denied. They seemed destined to spend the rest of their lives in prison, separated. Their story concluded. But in May 2023, something changed. Their attorneys filed a habeas corpus petition, citing new evidence that they argued could have changed the outcome of their trials. The first piece of evidence was a letter. In November 1988, 9 months before the murders, Erik had written to his cousin, Andy Kano. The letter was discovered by journalist Robert Rand, who'd been following the case for years. In it, Erik wrote about ongoing sexual abuse by his father. The letter was written before the murders took place, before any defense strategy was needed. It appeared to corroborate what the brothers had testified to in court. The second piece of evidence was even more explosive. In May 2023, a former member of the boy band Menudo came forward. His name was Roy Rossello. He'd been 13 years old when he joined the Puerto Rican sensation in 1983. The group was signed to RCA Records, where Jose Menendez was an executive. In a sworn affidavit, Rossello claimed that in the early 1980s, when he was 14, he'd been taken to Jose Menendez's New Jersey home. He alleged he was given wine, felt like he had no control over his body, and was raped by Jose Menendez. Rossello stated he was in terrible pain for a week afterward, could barely move. Rossello had first spoken publicly about the allegations in a 2023 Peacock documentary called Menendez plus Menudo, Boys Betrayed. He described not just one incident, but multiple assaults, including before and after a performance at Radio City Music Hall in New York. He later filed a lawsuit in 2025 expanding on these claims, alleging Jose had subjected him to sexual assault in multiple countries. This new evidence presented a problem for prosecutors. At the second trial, the state's position had been that Jose Menendez wasn't the type of person who would molest a young boy, that the brothers' abuse claims were fabricated. If Rossello's allegations were true, it supported the defense theory. It suggested Jose Menendez did have a history of sexual abuse, that the brothers might have been telling the truth all along. In October 2024, Los Angeles County District Attorney George Gaskin announced he was recommending resentencing for the brothers. He cited the new evidence, the brothers' rehabilitation in prison, and changing societal understanding of sexual violence. He recommended their sentences be reduced to 50 years to life. Because both brothers were under 26 at the time of the murders, this would make them immediately eligible for parole under California's youthful offender law. But politics intervened. In November 2024, Gascon lost his re-election bid. His successor, Nathan Hochman, took office in December and immediately announced he opposed resentencing. Hochman released a list of 16 what he called unacknowledged lies the brothers had told. He pointed to a psychological evaluation, finding them at moderate risk of violence if released. He called their self-defense claims fabricated. He urged the court to deny the petition. Despite Hochman's opposition, Judge Michael Yesick ruled in April 2025 that he had full authority to proceed with resentencing. On May 13, 2025, Judge Yesick resentenced Erik and Lyle Menendez to 50 years to life in prison, making them immediately eligible for parole. After 35 years behind bars, freedom seemed within reach. But on August 21, 2025, Erik Menendez appeared before the California Board of Parole hearings. After a 10-hour hearing, the board denied his parole. Commissioner John Barton cited prison violations and concerns about public safety. The following day, Lyle's hearing had the same result. Commissioner Julie Garland acknowledged his remorse and rehabilitation efforts, but denied parole, citing repeated cell phone infractions and what she termed antisocial behaviors. Both brothers were told they could petition for another hearing in 3 years, in 2028. The fight for freedom continues. During their decades in prison, both Lyle and Erik have worked to rehabilitate themselves and help other inmates. Erik co-founded Life Care and Hospice Connections, a program that has become a template for hospice care in California prisons. He facilitated programs on victim impact and empathy and led meditation classes. Lyle created Green Space, a prison beautification project involving murals and landscape redesign. He mentored youth offenders and published an inmate advisory bulletin. In 1999, Erik married Tammy Sackerman, a woman he'd connected with through letters. They remain married today, and Tammy has become an outspoken advocate for his release. Lyle married Anna Erickson in 1996, but they divorced in 2001 after she discovered he was writing to another woman. In 2003, he married Rebecca Sneed, a magazine editor turned attorney. They remained together until 2024, when Sneed announced they'd separated, but remained friends, and she'd continue fighting for his freedom. In 2018, after more than 20 years apart, Lyle was transferred to the Richard J. Donovan Correctional Facility near San Diego, where Erik was housed. The brothers were finally reunited. Erik later described the moment, saying they burst into tears immediately and hugged for several minutes without speaking. They now see each other every day and talk regularly. For Lyle, who'd fought for decades to be placed in the same facility as his brother, the reunion was everything. The case has remained in the public consciousness, inspiring countless documentaries, dramatizations, and discussions. In 2024, Netflix released 2 projects: Ryan Murphy's Monsters, the Lyle and Erik Menendez story, a dramatized series, and the Menendez brothers documentary, featuring new audio interviews with the brothers from prison. Both generated renewed public interest and debate. Erik publicly criticized Murphy's portrayal, calling it horrible and rooted in blatant lies. Kim Kardashian wrote an essay supporting the brothers' release, highlighting their rehabilitation work. California's Slayer statute prevented the brothers from inheriting their parents' estate. The $14 million fortune was consumed by legal fees, taxes, and debt. By the time their trials concluded, there was essentially nothing left. The spending spree that helped expose them, the money that prosecutors said was their motive, was gone. On that August night in 1989, two young men walked into their family's den carrying shotguns and fired 15 rounds into their parents. That much is not disputed. What remains disputed more than 3 decades later is why. Were they victims of horrific abuse who believed they had no choice? Or were they entitled killers motivated by a $14 million inheritance? The new evidence that emerged in 2023, the letter and Roy Rossello's allegations, suggests there may have been truth to the brothers' claims about their father. But even those who believe the abuse occurred often struggle with the question of proportionality. Did years of abuse justify 15 shotgun blasts? Could the brothers have left, reported the abuse, found another way? The spending spree in the months after the murders remains one of the most damaging pieces of evidence against them. $700,000. Rolex watches worn to their parents' funeral. A Porsche purchased weeks after the killings. Courtside seats at basketball games. This wasn't the behavior of traumatized victims. It was the behavior of young men celebrating newfound wealth and freedom. Yet their work in prison over 35 years tells a different story. The hospice program, the mentorship, the education, the rehabilitation. Both brothers have been described by prison officials and fellow inmates as model prisoners who've given back, who've changed, who've worked to make meaning from tragedy. In August 2025, parole boards looked at all of this: the crime, the motives, the rehabilitation, the risk, and said not yet. 3 more years. Erik and Lyle Menendez will be in their late 50s when they next appear before the parole board in 2028. They've now spent more of their lives in prison than they spent free. Whether they'll ever walk out remains to be seen. For the family members still fighting for their release, including many of Jose and Kitty's relatives, the brothers have paid enough. They were young, they were abused, they've rehabilitated themselves. For those who oppose their release, including some prosecutors and family members, no amount of time can erase what they did. 2 people are dead, shot multiple times at close range, in their own home, by their own children. The shotguns used that night were never found, still buried somewhere along Mulholland Drive. But the questions they raised remain. What really happened in the Menendez house? How much was abuse and how much was greed? Can terrible crimes committed by damaged young people ever truly be forgiven? The Menendez brothers' case continues to divide America, just as it did in the 1990s. The only certainty is that on August 20th, 1989, in a Beverly Hills mansion, 2 parents lost their lives and 2 sons lost their freedom. Behind the perfect facade of wealth and success, something broke. And 36 years later, we're still trying to understand what it was.